Hey guys, it's San and welcome back to the Bulba Squad. So this is actually a very impromptu live stream that I 100% did not really plan out. Essentially, long story short, Captain Zack Sparrow over here was going to be having Gary King Pokemon on his channel. Last minute thing, he was unable to attend, so I volunteered to step in. Technical difficulties ensued, so we decided it would be easier to come over onto my channel where I can set stuff up, we can get it all nice and smooth, and we can talk for maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours tops, but it's really late, so this will be a very short thing. And now I'm going to pass it off to Captain Zack Sparrow.
Yeah, howdy guys. Thanks for having me on, Sam. I appreciate it. Just like you said there, we had some technical difficulties earlier, so glad we were able to move over to here. Super thankful for Sam's flexibility, so super grateful for that. Yeah, unfortunately we weren't able to get Gary on, but I'm sure we'll be able to talk to him soon. But glad to be on Bulba Squad's channel now, so super happy and excited for any questions you guys might have for us, anything that we can debate, talk about, anything, or looking forward to talking tonight. So I appreciate this. Again, thank you.
All right, so you had said you were interested in talking with me. Were there any questions you wanted to ask me, since this is still technically your live stream? It just happens to be on my channel.
Yeah, guys, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on my channel. I appreciate it. So, as far as actually talking about anything in particular, man, I'm open for anything. I would be happy for either one of us to take questions. Both of us, I love questions. I like providing value to people, whatever value I might have to bring or to add to the conversation. Some questions I had for you would be, where do you see modern in the next short-ish term, like 1-2 years? Do you see a lull in the market here in the next bit, or do you foresee another catalyst with celebrations coming up? What do you expect?
So, literally just today, someone in my Discord posted a graph showing the stages of a bubble. Let me see if I can actually pull it up for myself so I can more accurately speak about it. And so I started lining up things on this graph, seeing where exactly are we on it, because I do 100% believe modern is still in a bubble, and that's perfectly fine. Especially whenever a market develops very rapidly, especially with what happened with Logan Paul and the 2020, it was expected for a bubble to occur. Doesn't mean the market's going to collapse. It just means that things have changed a bit, and it's still worrisome for depending on where you're purchasing. But in the end, I am very confident in the idea that even after it pops, we're going to end up far above where we were before. I don't know if that'll mean like 20-30% higher prices or maybe even higher or lower. I don't know, but I do think we will be higher than where we were prior to this. So I'm just going to line it up for you real quick. The takeoff phase, I believe that was around the beginning of the pandemic, as well as Hidden Fates, because Hidden Fates definitely started to kickstarting all of this off, because Hidden Fates immediately, right out the gate, started to appreciate a bit on the secondary market. It was not cheap and MSRP all day long, because people really liked the set. Hidden Fates was, think of it almost like a unicorn set. People just kept speculating nonstop. Oh, it's going to be this time we're going to get it. We're going to get this time. People were super excited. Then the first sell-off was as soon as the market took off. After years of dead period from the 2017 crash, people wanted to get off of it, so they sold off. And then it fell into like kind of the bear trap with the reprints on modern sets, thinking Hidden Fates, Unified Minds, Unbroken Bonds, Ultra Prism. Think those.
Definitely. Sam,
Then,
just to pause real quick. Jake Pokenomics said he'd like to hop on if possible. I just want to bring that to your
wow.
attention.
Thank you for getting my attention. Yeah, I can definitely bring you on, Jake.
Do you have his Discord?
No, I do not. Jake Pokenomics, just click on any one of my videos, go to my comment section. You'll find the top comment right there. Join my Discord, and then message me message Bulba Squad, like that. Not Sand with Bulba Squad, Bulba Squad. So then I can get you on the listing, and then I can bring you in as well. It's a little convoluted, but that's the best way for me to do it.
Am I able to copy paste the link you sent me and send it to him? Because I have his
Yeah,
Discord. Or
it should be able to work. If you can send it to him like that, that'll work just fine.
Yeah, let's try that too. I'm
All
gonna
right.
try to send it to you, Jake, while he's continuing to discuss.
Yes. So kind of back to what I was saying. The media attention
That
phase,
doesn't
I
work.
think that was, I
I'll try.
guess you could argue a little bit that it was regular news networks getting in on it, but I think it was primarily Logan Paul that really kickstarted it all. And when we hit the enthusiasm phase, that would be the news media talking about how much Pokemon is worth. All of these brand new influencers. What was one of the big guys? I think he bought a Charizard for $250,000 or a third of a million. Do you happen to remember off the top of your head?
I do not.
It was a big rapper that did it. All these things coming into it and building enthusiasm, scalpers, flippers, investors. Then we got into greed. Perfect example, Vivid Voltage. Vivid Voltage came out and immediately skyrocketed to what I think at release 110, 120 was the cheapest you could get. And then very rapidly it escalated to 180, and I've even heard from people that they successfully sold at $300 at their peak, which was absolutely ridiculous. And so people who were buying and holding were getting greedy because they thought it could just keep going up. Next, the delusion phase. Let me just give you a real easy quote. Doesn't matter what price I pay, 10 to 20 years down the road, I will make money. New paradigm. I'm not trying to throw shade at Mason Cardinal Gaming, but I'm just going to use his quotes. Prices will never go back to how they were before this. Okay, not trying to throw shade, just that's the best description I can use. And now I believe we are somewhere in between denial, the bull trap, and return to normal, which would be we think we've already gone through everything. We're at the new level of norm, but we're not actually there. We still have a ways to drop because it's hard to tell where we're at. Denial, you could technically argue that because people are saying that battle styles just happen to be a bad set. It's just one bad set, and that's what caused it. Chilling Grain is just weaker because EV Heroes is so good and Evolving Skies is so good. And then the Bear Trap, you could also argue that because of buy the dip, Poke Nev. We got Rudy over there. We got a little bit of SM Pratt. People saying buy the dip. So we could argue it's in either one of those two stages. I don't think we're to the new normal just yet. But I guess you could also argue that one, but I'm a little less certain on it. But those are the three I think we're in. And then for those of you who are interested, the final steps would be capitulation, despair, and then return to the mean, which would be a level above where we were prior to the big boom. Yeah, that was a long explanation, and my God, that's more people online than I thought. I'm used to like 12.
Hey, that's awesome because I will interpret that as that there are numerous people watching us. I don't look at the numbers. I don't know how to. Like I said, I'm a little inept when it comes to that now. So awesome. Thank you for giving them that description. I tried sending Jake the one link. Didn't work. I tried sending him an invite to your Discord, which I know was valid. So hopefully you can get in here. That'd be great to have his insight as well.
Okay, is he Jacob M7 by chance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One moment. I'm going to let you actually take over while I handle some technical stuff behind the scenes.
That sounds great.
Give me one moment. Let's pass it off to you.
All right. Now is where I get to badmouth the Bulbous Squad. No, thanks guys for tuning up. Like you said, if you are just now tuning into the live stream, I on my channel was going to have Gary King Pokemon on. He ended up not being able to show up for whatever reason. Hope he's doing just fine. We had to reschedule and just couldn't come onto the show tonight. Then Sam tried to do a guest appearance on my show, and we couldn't get the volume to work. So it's just been one of those nights. So Sam graciously had me on the show, and then now Jake from Pokenomics, he wanted to hop on. So this is a big impromptu session. We're gonna have a lot of fun tonight, guys. I love this stuff. So, and I know you guys do too. So I think Gary V preceded Logan Paul to spark the awareness hype. He absolutely did, Mike. Absolutely. If you guys aren't familiar with Gary V, definitely Google, YouTube the man. You should tune into him as well.
There we go.
looks
All right,
interesting.
so in a moment we should have pokenomics joining in, which will be interesting. I might struggle talking a little bit because I may have knowledge when it comes to modern, but I am a complete amateur in pseudo vintage, which I classify between WotC and XY era. And vintage, I'm You can call me you could call me a little less than an amateur, or a little bit more than an amateur. I'm not the greatest in those areas.
You're going to do great.
This should be fun. One moment. All right, and so they should be joining us he should be joining us in just a minute. I gave him a link. He's probably setting up whatever he needs to.
Very cool.
Let's actually go look into the comments real quick. I'm certain that someone has asked a question and I completely overlooked it because I was talking a little too much. Question: do you think Pokemon will have another boom like when Logan Paul did for Pokemon? Kind of embarrassing, but when that happened, that's when I got into the hobby again. There's nothing embarrassing about that, man. Getting into the hobby is getting into the hobby. Doesn't matter if you did it back in 2001 and just never left and were a weirdo like that, or if you were or if you joined during the Pokemon Go boom, or if you joined even at the beginning of 2020. Because believe it or not, I'm very new to this. I joined February of 2020. So it's perfectly fine. You're here now. That's all that matters. Do you think Pokemon will have another boom like when Logan Paul did for Pokemon? Kind of embarrassing. All right. Do we think we'll have another boom? I think they will, because looking back on it from my perspective, Pokemon Go was entirely them. Like there was no magical pandemic going on. There was no stonkers looking everywhere. It was just pure natural excitement sparked by the Pokemon company's innovation. If we then decide to go look at the 2020 boom, I argue the party started with 2019 Hidden Fates. Again, that was completely Pokemon releasing a set that was so good, it started to kickstart something in modern. And then it just happened to get caught on the 2020 hype train. So that's two scenarios where they successfully generated hype completely on their own. So I would be willing to bet that sooner or later, they'll pull something else off. You got any thoughts?
So I did, and then I read some other comments, and I don't know what we're talking about anymore.
Oh, okay. If you scroll up,
Was it the boom question?
Yes, I'll repeat it for you. Do you think Pokemon will have another boom? I can actually bring it up on screen. There you go.
Awesome.
And our third guest, Impromptu.
What's up?
Didn't expect this tonight. Very surprised that this even occurred. Welcome to the channel, and I assume that anyone and everyone here will know Jake.
It's nice hanging out with you guys. I was looking forward to seeing you talk with Gary, Zack, and then I was disappointed when that didn't happen. And I had like the same sort of thought of like maybe I'll reach out to you and just be like, hey man, I'll I'll come on if you're looking for a guest. And it was like, Bubble Squad had the same idea. So happy to hang out and talk. But I just enjoy talking Pokemon. So, and I love talking it with new people. I haven't really got a chance to talk about this stuff with you guys. So
yeah, people have requested that I try to grab you onto the channel because they anticipate that between you and me there would be a good bit of discourse that would be fun, because they know for a fact that you and me don't see eye to eye on a number of things, and that's actually for the best. I don't know if you saw the round table that I had with the other three, Swami, Mason, and Old School. That was real fun because a bunch of us did not agree on different things. And that discourse is the best way to grow.
Yeah, definitely interested in your opinions and different opinions to mine.
All right, so let's get this started. We'll start from this question, and then we'll start from a clean slate, so that way we don't have to go back through the comments. Captain Zack Sparrow, you wanted to answer something, and if Jake, you want to as well, we can go on ahead.
Yeah, and I mean the question below us there: do you think Pokemon will have another boom like when Logan Paul did for Pokemon? Yeah, absolutely. Nothing's guaranteed. Kind of embarrassing, but when that happened, that's when I got back into the hobby again, which is great. That's normal. That's healthy. That's what happens with anything that's new and exciting. Like that's not a thing to be ashamed of, right? For whatever reason, you weren't into it before, you were busy, you didn't know about it, you just weren't into it at the time. That's totally cool. Do I think there will be another boom? Yes. We see that regularly, especially with Pokemon. It's very cyclical. That's with most things. We're talking about $100 billion franchise. Yes, I don't think it's really a question of if, but really when. That's more of the question for me at this point: is when will be the next boom. I said this before, I'll say it again. For all we know, Beyonce could come out next month and we find out she's got the biggest Lugia collection in the world. Oh my goodness. And then she did a collab with BTS in Japan and it goes viral and hits 10 million views. Yes, I think that some boom will happen. I don't know when, right? No one does, but yes. I don't think I need to elaborate anymore.
I'm not sure I have anything to add to this one. I mean, yeah, I think that definitely like not embarrassing makes perfect sense just because, so many people, I mean, these guys have such huge platforms, and then, it went to Mizkif and, a number of other, Ludwig and a number of these other streamers got into it too, a number of other channels. So it's just so many people heard of Pokemon or got reintroduced to Pokemon. And then, I think some people might really like Logan Paul, and that's why, because he liked it, they jumped into it. But I think probably most people, it was actually just because they really like Pokemon, and Logan Paul and others just reminded them of that fact, and that's probably why they're here and why they jumped into it. Just getting more exposure. In terms of like, will there ever be like another catalyst or event like that? No idea.
All right, so where I'm going to keep going forward as though this is your live stream, Captain Zack Sparrow, since this is originally what it is. So any questions you got, guys, now you can throw them at both me and Jake, and we can grab from the audience. You can grab from the audience at your discretion. Just start talking, and I can pick it out and put it on screen.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, gosh, this is your platform, so definitely host it. But I did have some questions for you guys. I think that would be cool to start off with. So, yeah, there's a little bit of a lull in the market compared to where we were at several months ago. What is your guys' take in the next short term-ish, like we're talking like 6, 12 months, 18 months, where do you see vintage and where do you see modern in that time frame? I understand there's not necessarily a right answer to that, or maybe there is, in your opinion. All the better.
All right, so I suppose I can take the lead. I'm mostly going to talk about modern. Again, not too good on vintage. Modern, I absolutely see we have a ways to go. 6 to 12 months out easily is whenever I have an idea as to where I want to start purchasing. I don't feel comfortable purchasing at all right now. Maybe a little bit. I've talked about the Ultra Premium Collection. I can pick that up at MSRP. I wouldn't mind that, mainly because historically, those Ultra Premium Collections have held a floor of at or very close to MSRP, and the PWCC price history supports this, as well as Swami and Cardinal were able to corroborate this to an extent. So that is the only area I would look at with any form of confidence right now. But other than that, I could very easily see Evolving Skies becoming a $90 booster box, simply because even though the overall population of the hobby has increased from where it was last year, undeniably so, Pokemon has 100% increased the print run sizes. Like, we know that they got more printers up and running, and let's take a look at battle styles. That's under control. Chilling Grain, we still got more waves of that coming. I think I went onto eBay the other day, 107 shipped. That's incredibly cheap already. That's exactly where it needs to be. Shining Fates, if I'm correct, it's like $60, $70. After shipping and tax, it's pretty much MSRP. It's just online with the extra middleman fees. So Evolving Skies, it has a ways to go. As for vintage, from my understanding, it looks like pretty much all of the population-driven cards have already dropped for the most part. Population driven meaning that the more people in the hobby there are, the higher the price climbs. They're directly correlated. And perfect example, the base set Charizard, because that had one of the biggest drops, akin to what happened with the PSA 10 Skyridge Charizard back in, I believe, 2017. I think it went from 4,500 to like 1,300. The second number might be wrong. I know 4,500 is right. As for pseudo vintage, which I classify after WotC and before XY, so I guess up to the black and white era, that I really haven't seen too much movement on. I spoke with an expert. I call him an expert in that area. He's Zuko 107. Go check him out. He said that if anything, the demand has grown stronger there, and it almost seems as though people have shifted to that area because if you're knowledgeable in it, there's a lot of opportunity still lying in there. So that's my 2 cents.
So the question is just like overall, like what do I think's happening in both vintage and modern? Like predict the future. I mean, I really don't know. I can tell you what I'm doing and what I think. I think the problem with speculating on modern in general is the lack of history. I think when we talk a lot about the numbers and the data of how well modern is done, it's really hard to determine what part of that is going to be sort of a normal part of Pokemon going forward. And what is that pattern going to look like normally? And what part of that was a result of the huge boom and growth in the overall hobby that's not really replicable, right? And so I think when we think about what caused all that growth, is that growth sustainable? And I think nobody thinks that type of growth is necessarily sustainable, but people will argue, well, it doesn't need to be sustainable for it to still continue to see solid growth, right? On modern sets, whether they're brand new modern sets coming out or fairly modern sets that are already at $1,000 or $500, $600, $700. And I think for me, there's a lot of speculation. I think a lot of smart people have a lot of smart opinions. Like these two guys, I'm sure, have lots of smart reasons and smart opinions why I like this set over that set and all these types of things. But I think it is very, very speculative. I think that vintage is pretty speculative and modern's very speculative. That's my take on all this stuff as of now. I think when we look at something like Magic, there's just much more price history to defend and support. Like if you buy, a booster box at $80, $85, that it may take quite a while for it to reach that like $120 and then maybe eventually like $150, maybe $200, $250 price point. But there's a sort of longer, more like established steady pattern with that. In Pokemon, there was sort of like no growth or zero growth on a lot of these boxes for 4 years. And there were tons of them readily available, and people were fire selling certain things for lots and lots of businesses lost lots of money on all this stuff. And now all of a sudden, every booster box from the Sun and Moon era, booster boxes like Evolutions, I've talked a lot about them. I'm very much not a fan of investing in Evolutions. I think it's an incredibly risky speculative set for many reasons. I'd be happy to talk about that with you guys because you guys might have differing opinions. I think but not all modern sets are created equal. There are a lot of modern sets that I think are a much better risk reward ratio, we could say. I think that there's plenty of money. Like I think a number of these sets, it hopefully will be more valuable in the future, whether you're buying Evolving Skies, trying to get that at I think they're probably selling for $120 to $140 right now, roughly. Hopefully that will go up over time. I think the idea that will come down to 90 possible. I mean, that wouldn't be my expectation. I think Battle Styles went down to 90 in large part because people are just not excited for that set, where Evolving Skies, people are very, very excited for it. But of course, a lot of that will have to do with the amount of product that people get. I think the amount of product that actual collectors want and actually open versus the amount of businesses that are just grabbing all of this product at $120 because they think it's going to be a great investment. So the danger, right, and this is very similar to what happened with Battle Styles, is that these businesses or resellers, both small and large, all thought, okay, we're going to make a ton of money on Battle Styles. Every set goes to the moon. we're going to buy tons of it. And then they got tons of it, and they all have a ton of it, and there's aren't enough collectors or people interested in opening it, you know, and that's why the people have really got hammered on battle styles, and lots of places have been having to sell at a loss when you include in like shipping and fees, because they just need to unload it so they can get money for the next set or for something else. So I think Evolving Skies Clear is going to be a much more popular set. You know, I mean, you never really know, but like I think you do with a lot of these cards that are in it. I think that, you know, but the whole thing, like I think it's all very speculative. I think when you buy a modern booster Pokemon box at retail, when it first comes out, you want to try to buy like the best sets, obviously, just like using common sense, the sets that people really like to open, really enjoy. And then you want to be patient. And you also want to think that like, this isn't necessarily Magic. So there isn't like this long history of these products actually going up. And we don't know what Pokemon's going to do with reprints, and we don't know how long these boxes are going to take to go up, you know. But I think going back to a time where, right, these boxes, it takes like a year or 2 years for it to like go up at all, you know, or 3-4 years for it to go up, you know, 40-50%. I think that would be good. That would actually show a health in these boxes, and that they didn't overprint them, and that they're not doing too many reprints. And a lot of people buying these things are looking for much larger gains. When we talk about vintage, I think cards are very expensive. Lots of things are very expensive. Sorry, I'm going on and on here, but I think cards are very expensive by and large. But I also think these cards are extremely valuable, enjoyed, and there are very few of them in the world. So they have much better investment, sort of long-term investment fundamentals that I like. I know how many PSA cards of this card are graded. I know if it's a trophy, I know how many of that card roughly is in the world. I have no idea how many booster boxes, you know, Pokemon is printing. I have no idea what the reprints are going to look like. I don't like investing quite a bit of money in things that just don't have a long track record or history. But would I be surprised if people like buy retail modern booster boxes and they make like very solid returns? Not at all. I would hope and expect that to happen, and would be happy if that happened. Now, the last thing I will say is I definitely would not be investing in like PSA 10 alternative arts right now. Right? You know, I wouldn't be investing in graded versions. Everything is against you right now in those cards.
Well, what about my Northern Batman?
You know, all of these things are very expensive right now, in large part because PSA shut down, because it costs so much to send your cards out for grading. If you're thinking of like holding those cards for a long term, PSA is going to, you know, open back up eventually. It might even be cheaper to grade. We don't know. It's going to be, you know, those are going to be opened up over time. There's going to be English versions of all those cards. There might even be promos of some of those cards that they make like readily available in English with the same art. You just have no idea. Plus, you have no idea how many people are just holding, and it's a ton, are just holding those cards, waiting for PSA to open to send them in. Evolutions is, you know, and Hidden Fates are going to be the worst offenders of that. You're going to see just mountains of those cards going in forever. Shining Fates too, you know. So, sealed modern product at retail, you know, I think is perfectly reasonable. Just if you like it, if it makes you happy and you like it, you enjoy having like a bunch of it in your closet, these types of things. So that's what I would say on all of that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, overall, go ahead, Captain.
I was gonna say
I
don't like modern product at all. So.
I think I'll call you Captain from now on. It's just so much easier to say.
Hey, go ahead.
All right. So I wholeheartedly agree with pretty much everything you said, because thankfully I've been able to talk with Swami in the past, and he provided lots of insight. You're 100% right. Modern is unproven, and the way I view it is vintage, you're holding a grenade. Pseudo vintage, you're holding a grenade with the pin out, but you're still holding it down. Modern, it's a live grenade. You have no clue what it's going to do, and you need to approach it like that. But modern also is such a strange thing that if you can learn how to navigate it, it does have potential, because it is directly correlated to the health of the overall TCG. The argument I've made over my time here has been, to believe in modern is to believe in Pokemon in itself. If modern doesn't ever appreciate, then that means the population of the hobby has never exceeded the population of the hobby at that given point when the supply was made. So it never exceeded or grew enough to it never grew enough to outweigh the supply. And I think when it comes to modern, especially now with how everyone's eyes are on it, you got to play it so smart at this point. You can't just buy every single set at release. And someone in this chat, I think it's someone S, I forget, Mike S, he pointed out that it's technically better for opportunity cost to wait until the 2 years have passed, because following previous trends, after a set is out of rotation, they stop printing it usually. Evolutions was a very unique situation. That was in print, or at least in supply, until March of last year. But Ultra Prism was still in rotation, and then the Sun and Moon thing, everyone goes back and forth on that. Right. I heard one of you wanted to chime in, so go ahead.
Well, one quick counter argument to the idea that, like, if these sets don't go up in value, that means that Pokemon isn't doing well or growing. So I think that one thing we have to think about, and I want to separate sealed product from PSA cards here, because I think that's really important. Because I think that there are very good arguments made about PSA cards not going up in value, and still the sealed product maybe potentially going up in value and vintage product going up in value. So I think that, you know, my biggest frustration and irritation and anger has been with the people telling people to grade everything, and people losing lots of money grading with CGC, and basically streamers making a lot of money telling their, you know, selling those services to people, and then, you know, and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, people who tell others to, like, buy, like, retail popular Pokemon sets at, you know, at retail and keep them sealed, that's literally, like, it's probably going to work out. But I do want to say that there is a difference between that and Magic and what's happening in Magic. And in Magic too, you see, they don't grade modern cards, right? And yet the sealed boxes continue to go up because people like to open them, like to play them, revisit those types of sets. So why are people going to want to revisit these sets if it's not for playable reasons? Are they going to want to revisit these sets for collector reasons? That's what people who are investing in these things are thinking, right? It's like, well, people in 5, 10, 15, 20 years are going to want to collect this, you know, reopen it and have that experience. I'm not sure, you know, and maybe, like, absolutely maybe, but there's also going to be, like, cheap modern sets. They might put in, like, one of one cards. Like, we might go the way of sports, where there's much more interesting collector sets where you have sort of WotC as, like, the originals and the first appearances of things, and connected in sort of a deep historical way and not that much supply. And then you might have certain middle generations where there's lots of supply because there was boom periods in Pokemon, and actually little connection and collector connection too. But Pokemon could still be thriving and have gone in a different direction, where people are really interested in the modern and really interested in the vintage, and not so much in the middle. So I'm not saying that's necessarily going to happen, but I think I think the prices some people are paying for certain things now, and not the retail prices, but some of these PSA 10 prices, like all these sorts of things, it seems like they're already factoring in, like, 100%. Kids today, adults today, who are opening this are going to definitely love these sets and want these sets. And to me, if we look at other hobbies, that isn't the case, right? So if you look at sports, sports is a great example. Now, we've seen a lot of movement on the sealed product, but the PSA cards are worth nothing in a lot of these, like, 90 sets, for example. So, you know, that's interesting. You know, and part of that can be that, you know, that I'm trying to understand what's exactly going on there. Like, I'm looking into, like, these, like, Fleer metal, you know, 94, and I'm trying to understand, like, why certain booster boxes are going up, and some have, like, these Jordan cards where they're inserted, and if you grade them, they can be worth, like, a few $100s or $500. I think some of it is opening channels or for the experience, and people will pay, you know, and so we might, right, that's the pro argument of why these Pokemon booster boxes will always have these streaming channels, and people will always pay a certain amount to open those on their stream. So for me, the way I think about these things, I think, you know, and all this is very highly speculative, but I think, like, a lot of these more popular products, I think people will pay higher for in the future, but how high? And I also don't necessarily view it as an investment that's going to sort of keep going up. I view it maybe more as, like, a plateauing of, like, this is how much someone realistically will pay to open a booster box where the value of the inside cards are not worth that much, and they're just doing it for the experience. And what are we talking, like 300, 400, 500? Yeah, I don't know. People are buying booster boxes for $700 right now, $800, $1,000.
Team up.
You know, already above that. And I'm just not sure, like, even at those prices, you know, and listen, people are still opening evolutions, and you know, people seem to love it. People seem to love, you know, love all this stuff. I worry, and I have so much data to support why reprints are worthless in every other hobby except Pokemon. Literally worthless. Like, we're talking about like $1 million and a penny, like the same art, the same card versus the original. And so I just think that there's also just people just ignoring like the history of other collectibles, of other hobbies. And it doesn't mean that we're going to follow that way. But yeah, so that's where I come from. But again, nobody knows, right? I mean, no one knows the future. It's all just based on opinions and speculation and where you want to place your risks, that sort of thing. And also like what makes you happy, right? And what you enjoy, and like what drives you and interests you, you know, because this is probably not the place you should be, particularly at this point, in my opinion, to be like being, you know, to be putting the majority of your mind. But that could be something we could argue about too.
I think we may just spend the rest of the time we have on this topic, considering I think the three of us have pretty diverse views on it. And I'm going to be completely blunt. I have not seen people go against you in regards to modern in this. So I'm a little fun to have I'm going to have fun going at it like this, because it's definitely going to be educational for not only the people who are very knowledgeable in this watching this YouTube channel, but plenty of my Timmies, because I have a very nice little pen of them, and we got to teach them. That's the whole purpose of this channel. You're absolutely correct in pretty much everything you say. I learned this a while back whenever I found Sean with Reserved Investments, and I've spoken with him a bunch, and I've gone deep diving into the other hobbies I want to understand. So one thing that people will not like to hear is I'm trying to figure out what kills a collectible so I can start spotting the red herring in Pokemon and jump ship before that happens. That is one of the main things I've been trying to do. And you're very right. Modern is absolutely going to plateau sooner or later. We have no clue where. 1,000, 2,000, maybe some of these sets plateau as low as $200. That's perfectly reasonable. And as Sean has put it in the past, the winners in any form of collectible market are the sellers in between point A and point B. B being the death or the plateau of that collectible. And you're absolutely correct. Not everyone is going to want every single set. Let's be completely honest. Battle Styles. If Battle Styles did not have alternate arts, that would be a Steam Siege level set. Darkness Ablaze. If you guys watched that live stream, we were making fun of it. What's the best thing it's got? Charizard VMAX, which is just an ultra rare. Eternatus, I guess, kind of. And then Butterfree. Stupid. And then we got Rebel Trash, as I call it. I hate that set. I don't like it. Very biased against that one. I can absolutely see that. So it then kind of goes back to the point I made earlier, where we just have to really cherry pick. And I'm so scared of this because I'm so confident on it. I'm afraid of my confidence. Eevee Heroes. That just feels stupid. That is the one set I've ever seen in Pokemon's history that I can find where you literally could open it and not lose. Not meaning in regards to the intrinsic value. Like, you're never going to hit the intrinsic value. But if you like evolutions, can you even open a box and not get an evolution? Like, that's the question. Can you open one without an evolution? What are you going to do? Pull the one ultra rare that isn't an evolution, I guess? What, I think like a gold card? Well, you're probably still going to hit 2 or 3 along the way. And I think sets like that are going to be what we should even bother looking at. Because realistically, you like Eevees, that's all you got. You go to Hidden Fates, you got about, 36 other full arts it's like 36 full arts, and I think 5 of them are Eevee. So 31 others that you could pull that are not evolutions, and you'll be upset. But Eevee Heroes, that fits to the T what you had said about finding essentially the best thing that people are likely to go back to. Again, not saying that's the perfect investment. It's just I wanted to bring it up because I'm so scared of my own confidence in it. Whenever I'm that confident, I want to figure out what is wrong with me.
I think what's tricky, and then I'd love to hear, Zach, just like your opinion on this stuff. But I think it's two questions, right? It's when do I buy? And then when do I sell if I don't think it's like an invest? Because when I say modern may not be investable, what I really mean is like it's something you can just like hold for 20 or 30 years and it's just going to kind of continuously going up in value. Now it could. I really don't know. It makes me too nervous. It's too there are way too many fundamental, way too many issues in it. There are way too many people buying into that for me to feel comfortable. And I just don't know if there are going to be enough collectors or people interested in it at the end of the day to buy all that product from those people. And there absolutely 100% could be. I just don't know. That's where I'm coming from. Not that we can really know anything. There are just certain things that I think are more risky and less risky. Whereas like, these PSA 10 pop cards, I have zero, I compared to that stuff, I have very little doubt that there are going to be people with a lot of money who want these and not enough to go around, unless a lot of us just all of a sudden wake up one day and hate these things. And most of us have just been in the hobby too long and we're just gonna have more and more money. So I don't see that happening. Okay. But it is possible. And the 9s and the 8s and all these things can act as a weight. And there are lots of arguments there. But so the two things we have to worry about is like when to buy. So we don't want dead money. When you think, if we're just talking purely financial, you don't want dead money just sitting in something that isn't moving at all. And so like when we look at Magic, for example, or some of these other hobbies, it's like, in that hobby, you might wait like 6 months or you might wait a year. You want to wait till, that first maybe largest print run is mostly saturated into the market. And then you look at the market and you study it and you see the box price is like starting to tick up just a little bit. And that's when you maybe you buy a big position or something in it if you're an investor, right? So in Pokemon, what does that system look like? In the past, it's been built largely around playability for a lot of these sets, right? Now we're in this sort of like collector time where it's like where these sets are double, triple, quadruple, have nothing to do with playability, but have all to do with like collectability, but also in very large part investing and trying to make money. And that huge bubble sort of mania of that just scares me because it's very unpredictable to see where those prices are going to settle. But those two things we're looking at, right, of how long I should wait. Let's put those already expensive sets aside. Let's look at like, what do I want to do with new sets that are going to come out, like a good new set, what's it called? Well, one we've been talking about, the Skies one. Sorry, Evolving Skies. Yeah, Evolving Skies. So we're like, okay, should be a really good set, really popular set. Should I wait a year? Should I wait 6 months? If I wait a year, will it drop back down, or 8 months, will it drop back down to 90? So I don't have to pay 120. That might be huge, because maybe in 5 years, that box is like 150, 200, if they really print a lot of it and Pokemon does well, and the decisions you make in that and the patterns you make, particularly if you're buying a lot of it, have huge consequences when you're looking at like the margin, because you're paying shipping on both sides. If you're not a business, you're paying sales tax, and then, have to resell it. So, the average person is not Rudy from Alpha Investments, who has everything so streamlined and can sell to all his patrons and everyone, where it's like, it's a machine, and these people only need like $5-10 of margin to make tens of $15,000 on these huge moves. A lot of other people, they just buy like a case, right? And they pay sales tax, and they buy it for like 140, and they're thinking of it as like an investment. And that's where you get into, it's not as attractive as like it going to 150 in 4 years or something is not as attractive anymore, particularly if you're buying it at the wrong times. So it's a lot of time. Now in this, if the market keeps happening like it's been happening, right? And like they just can't print enough again, and Pokemon blows up again and has another sort of cycle this year, just like it did last year, that box could get crazy eaten up, and it could go to 300, right? Like anything is possible in this type of environment. But it's that also makes it scary, for me. And trust me, I mean, vintage, there's a reason I bought no Pokemon at all, almost, for the 6 months before, is because I was like, this is just madness, and prices are all over the place, and I have no way of feeling comfortable with like where we're at. And so I'm just going to sort of, invest in other things that I think are undervalued and not seen, other TCGs, and sort of wait for it to make more sense. Things started to make a little bit more sense to me, a little bit calmer. And that's when I started buying a little bit again, so that's how I sort of do things. But yeah, predicting both of those two things, and then when to sell if we think it's going to plateau and where is that plateau, is challenging versus just buying an asset that you think is probably just going to keep going up over time as long as Pokemon stays strong. But you might disagree, right? You guys both might feel like as long as Pokemon stays strong, all these things will continue to go up, and that could be the case. Dangerous. I mean, only one way to tell is going to be to watch it happen.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I guess it's my time here to have some input. Yeah,
sorry,
I don't know. You're good. Yeah, I think you guys can hear me, right?
Yeah, no, I mean like that. We were talking over you for so long. Sorry about that.
Oh no, you guys are great. You had a lot to add. Yeah, not a whole lot to add there, right? Like, goodness, like, yeah, what's going to happen in 6 months? That's the question. So when do you buy? Great question. I'd like to know. But what do I do from an investment standpoint? Like, how can I mitigate risk? How can I take advantage of the things that I do know? As far as market timing is concerned, it gets really complex really quick, like a lot of what Jake just touched on when you're talking about buying into something. Because sure, yeah, Evolving Skies, do I think it has a lot of great things going for it? Yes, absolutely. Personally, I think so. Is buying it right out of the gate the play? If we see it printed a decent amount in the next 1 to 2 years, no, I wouldn't want to jump on that train immediately.
Right.
But again, counter to that, what if it's not printed to the extent that the Pokemon Company wanted to? What if there's just another mini boom even, and everyone just scoops up Evolving Skies? And we're looking at $300 booster boxes this time next year. Oh, well, I probably should have bought into that previously. That would have been great to know. And then a year after that, they just never reprint it for whatever reason. It was a fluke set, and it just goes up from there. So hindsight's always 2020. I never look at it like that. From an investment standpoint, I always look at it from a risk standpoint. Do I want to buy X amount of dollars of this product today, right now, knowing that it could potentially be reprinted 2 years from now and my money doing nothing for me for 2 years? I hate that. No, I'm not going to do that. That's my take on that. I hate risk. So no, I would not be doing anything like that. For the potential gain, awesome. That's not for me though.
Never be so blinded by the rewards that you forget that you can lose it all. But yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm trying to remember what I was going to reply to in a minute. Yeah, the whole with the whole idea of Pokemon reprinting, I've tried to figure it out as best as I can. A lot of people call me an idiot for even attempting it. Basically, the moment it hits out of rotation, historically, they don't do it anymore. And Ultra Prism proved to me that they are willing to reprint anything so long as it's within that rotation window. I think Ultra Prism was 2 months out from going out of rotation. So you are absolutely right on that risk. And Ultra Prism, Jake, do you have any insight on that? Why did it immediately go up in price? I heard that there was some issue with the printing supply, and that's why there wasn't enough supply, and the prices just kind of started climbing.
Yeah, I think it was a fairly popular set, and it was a short printed set for whatever reason, is what I've heard. I don't have evidence of that. That's literally just like I'm passing on what other people have said around me. So it's one of those things that when I don't have like direct evidence, I just want to make sure of that. But like that seems to be the case. It was just a more shortly printed set than a lot of those sets, and it was always a little bit more popular than some of the other sets that came around in terms of people liking to open it, liking to collect the cards.
All right. So we want to talk about anything else, Captain?
And we're getting a lot of MetaZoo comments.
Oh, yeah.
I think we would all have quite different opinions on that one. I'm still very, not negative, I'm cautious on it. I remember Force of Will. I learned about that. MetaZoo concerns me. but I absolutely see the potential in it. So considering the chat seems to be fixated on it, well, we can throw our opinions out there. My personal opinion, I've heard things about how Mike Waddell has handled some criticism in the past, whether his responses were correct or incorrect. That doesn't matter to me. It's the negative image that the CEO or the creator of the game has at all. I think maybe he shouldn't really interact too much with social media. If for whatever reason some of these insults that people say, which I know for a fact they're really nasty sometimes, get to him, because that can come back and hurt the image, because that's how I learned about him. That was my first interaction, knowing anything about him, hearing nothing but negativity about how he's behaved. And that impacted my overall view of the game. And right now, it's interesting. I'm hoping it does manage to take off, because I'm going to be completely honest. I'm a greedy person, and I would not mind one more TCG to profiteer off of. So that's why I want it to succeed. If it succeeds, I will play ball with that game.
No collecting for you.
I didn't know anything about cryptids. I didn't know who Mothman was, and that's their biggest guy. And overall, the way he's been handling it, appointing people to do stuff, he's doing a really good job of buying his way into the market. Buying in with Rudy, buying in with Channel Fireball, buying in with creators, Cardinal Gaming, all these people buying his way in. It's been brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It has caused such a fire that people hate this game with so much passion, and then it has its cult following at the same time. Let's be honest, because of what they've done, so many people at least know the name of MetaZoo and either associate it with apathy or absolute hatred or absolutely love. Like, those are the three paths you can take. There's no real in between, and it's really interesting.
Yeah. I think most of us are just kind of like, I think most of us like kind of like it and think it's fine. Or there are a number of kind of quieter people who are like, one, it's just fun to be heated about stuff, because like it's so like we're passionate, right? Like it can go over the line, and I have people go over the line who like say all sorts of horrible things to me, and and it's like, okay, we've moved from like passionate to just like you're just being so mean, and like, and you don't know me, and you don't like, and you're basing all these ridiculous like motivations you think I have like based on no evidence, right? And so
you're part of MetaZoo.
Yeah, and so I worry, right, like that, like because some of those people are super loud, like that's really what like Mike is getting, is just like really unfair, criticisms and negativity. I don't know. All I can say is, and I said this on my live stream with him, is like, Mike is not a childhood friend of mine. So I can't like be like, he's someone who I trust wholeheartedly. And I'd be so shocked if he like didn't take criticism well, right? Because it's someone who it's not someone who I've met, like seen for many years. It's like Mike and I have talked a handful of times. We've always had very positive conversations, but I'm also like always very respectful and interested and nice. And maybe when other people are not so that way, I'm not exactly sure how Mike handles that or takes that, and then how people respond to it. But as far as the game itself, right at this moment, I like it. I think it's fun. I shouldn't say the game, because I don't know how to play the game and I haven't played the game, but the collecting aspect of it, I think is fun. I think the hype around it's fun. Would I be investing in any of that? Absolutely not. Like, there's zero chance I would be investing in any of that. Do you want to like gamble on it a little for fun? Sure. But like to throw it in terms like that's just my personal feeling. And I said that to Mike, when he was on my channel, just that like I have, right, the $6,000 box that he gave to me for free. That's now 6,000, right? And I'm never selling Mike gave me 2 MetaZoo things for free. And I'm never selling either. And so I have no stake in whether this stuff goes up or down. I swear I will never sell these 2 products I got for free. And when I got them for free, they were much cheaper, and it was pretty early on, so maybe I wish I didn't make, and I kind of alluded to that, if Mike is like, do I wish I could sell this box for $6,000 and buy some other collectibles I really want? Yeah, like there are definitely things that I would rather have at $6,000 than a MetaZoo booster box right now. But that doesn't mean that I don't think that MetaZoo box could be worth $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 one day. It's just insanely speculative. Like you're literally like you're looking at like it hitting the jackpot and MetaZoo becoming, you know, basically the next Pokemon. And tons of people are playing the video games and watching the show and all these sorts of things. And because I think that some people, to be fair, who are investing in it are looking at like that potential upside, and they're thinking like that potential upside makes it like they like that, and they like that big risk and big gamble maybe, and they want to be in it, you know? So you have those people in it, right? And they might be in it for the long run. And if there are a lot of those people, that's good for the market, particularly the high-end market, and stabilize that sort of thing. And right there are cards that are going for like $30,000 right now, $40,000, guys. Like some of the Mothman like sample MetaZoo card, right? Like PSA 9, PSA 10. Some of those cards are floating around, and like there are some guys who own it, and they communicate and they make sure that, you know, they don't want people to sell it because they want the price to go up. All this types of thing. Now the exact same thing happens in Pokemon, guys. The same thing happens in a lot of places. Okay, so. But the point in illustrating all of that is like there's that sort of activity going on there. But there's also a lot of people, some of my friends, who are starting to sell their boxes right now, who bought at $2,000-$3,000, basically on the Rudy hype, you know, and on just people are making different gambles and bets financially when we think about this. Like there are the people who are making the short-term bet, and then there are people who are making the long-term bet. And if most of the people are making a short-term bet, the prices are going to crash and plummet. And I do wonder what that's going to do to the confidence of maybe some of the longer term people. And who are these longer term people? Are these people who have millions of dollars, or have $1 million in Pokemon, or some of these, or Magic, or these other collectibles, where putting in $20, $30, $50, $100,000 is nothing to them? Or are these people who are putting a large part of their money in there and, you know, into this sort of thing? So, but clearly MetaZoo is highly about the market right now. These prices are highly about investing and speculation and people enjoying that. And I think that is a big reason why the game has gotten so much hate, is because there's a lot of hate right now on people like investing and speculating on this stuff. And a lot of that's just like unwarranted. Like people should be like beyond allowed. Just like, why are people so upset with people enjoying themselves in that sort of way, particularly in a product that like you don't even want or you don't even care about? But I do think that the danger, right, is if people are lying and taking advantage of their audiences and telling people to invest in something and telling them that it's like really safe and it's really great. And it's like, you have probably no business, you know, saying that. And, you know, honestly, those content creators need to be careful, because, you know, what happened in crypto, the FBI got those guys, you know, 4 or 5 years later when they decided that crypto was now, you know, something that what's it called?
Regulated current, regulated.
Yeah, I forgot the word, but yeah, it's the name for like regulated assets. It's called maybe someone in the chat can come up with it, but whatever. But the point is that cards are not that right now. So like you and I, like we can give our investing opinions without saying we're financial advisors or talking about risk and not get in trouble. That may not always be true. And so that's part of the unregulatedness of that is dangerous, you know, all this sort of stuff. But yeah, those are my feelings on MetaZoo. But it's fun. I like it. And Rudy is a, you know, excuse my language, sorry for the swear I'm about to say, but you know, Rudy is a badass. You know, like
you can swear on my channel.
How do you feel about like him and all the moves he's making, and like, you know, I mean, it's crazy.
You want to pitch in, Captain?
Yeah, I like MetaZoo. I touched on this briefly on the channel just probably an hour or so ago now, but I like the artwork. I like the style of it. I like the booster boxes, the feel of it. Like those are all, and sure, that's subjective and anecdotal. That's my personal experience, but I'm not some special snowflake. I know if I have those feelings, that a lot of other people do too. And that alone, I know for sure, because I've seen your guys' comments before, at least on my channel and others, that's enough to draw people in a lot of times. Now, does that mean that it's an investable product? Not right now. By definition, right now, it's a speculative market. Is that a bad thing? No, but that's what it is. So am I speculating in the market right now? I mean, yes, but that's again speculation. Do I expect the product to go up? Not necessarily. Do I expect the product to tank? Not necessarily. I don't know what it's going to do. Nobody knows that. Did I anticipate that rubber band effect at the beginning? Sure. Do I like? I don't know. Do I like a lot of things about it? Yes. It has. Mike said some things that made me go, certainly. I think MetaZoo's fine. It's getting way more hate than it deserves right now. That's going to be with any new thing, with people shilling their product and other people shilling it for them, and all these YouTubers that he bought out. And again, we touched on this briefly earlier. What if Pokemon were getting started today? Would they not create a Discord group to converse with its community? Would they not try to get YouTubers engaged and interested in the product and try to give them product for them to open up and enjoy on the channel, and to get Instagram influencers involved? So it's just getting unnecessary hate from a lot of people. And then when you see just completely negative remarks, that's just something you have to completely disregard. So a lot of people are being very nasty toward it. Some of it's justified, most of it's not. That's my take on MetaZoo. Let's see here.
There we go. Yeah, it would be interesting to see if Pokemon tried to pick up now, but Pokemon had. This is one of the biggest criticisms I've seen of MetaZoo that I agree with. Pokemon had already kind of established itself before the TCG came out. If I'm correct, there was the manga and the anime in a few years before, and the game before the game fully launched in America, because Japan got it. They already had the games, and people loved the games. And then by the time it got to America, I think the anime was already rolling, so they had that. If MetaZoo could somehow introduce the TCG first, then successfully get everything else up and running, that'd be interesting to see. Like I said, I'm rooting for them. I want something else to play ball with.
I did have a question for you guys. It's not MetaZoo related.
That's all right.
What? I'm gonna guess first, because I wanna try to semi-stereotype here. What kind of music do you guys listen to? Every time I've heard you guys talk, I'm like, what kind of music does this dude listen to? So if you don't mind, real quick, this is just like a mini intercession, but if it's okay, Jake, I'm gonna try to guess for you first. I think you like Billy Joel. You like listening to his music, and maybe like 80s like rock.
Okay.
What?
I said okay.
Am I right?
Not a Billy Joel fan particularly. There are a couple songs that I like of Billy Joel's. I always liked Elton John a little bit better, particularly like early Elton John, but not a huge fan of Elton John either. I grew up so I love a lot of folk music, stuff from the 60s and 70s. I really like guitarists.
Like Eric Clapton.
Yeah, Clapton. I really like John Mayer. I think he's a really great guitarist. I love his stuff and collaborations that he's done with people like B.B. King and other sorts of things. And some of his live stuff. But yeah, I mean, the people I grew up with were like, Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan, Carole King, James Taylor. And then I, really like the Beatles, and I like Jason Mraz. I like his voice a lot. I'm a singer, and I used to like his songs, and I've been in like a number of a cappella groups, and then I was in a rock a cappella group actually for a while. So I did some rock stuff, but I mean, my tastes are pretty eclectic, and I like listening to a lot of different things. I like classical and jazz and rock too.
Awesome.
So we can expect more music videos from you, right? Like another
evolutions to the moon and the.
Yeah. Well, I was working on an album last year, before things kind of got shut down, with some people, and eventually I'd like to complete that album. I'm not sure if I'm ever going to share that with anyone in the world outside of like people in my immediate space, but it's more like a personal goal of mine.
Awesome.
10K, you reveal it.
Yeah. It's
Oh, I know. What are you at? I don't even know
definitely
anymore.
definitely will never happen on my channel. Will I do it? Although, we'll see. I mean,
That's awesome.
I said
Okay,
very
Sam.
much.
Do you listen to Disturbed? And hold on, I'm trying to think of something else different. Because I was going to guess that
Disturbed is.
Okay, well then that gives me a little hint here. You don't listen to pop that much.
No, absolutely not.
You like country?
No, I may be from Texas, but I'm not a fan of country. I'm actually a very big fan of sea shanties. Hence why I immediately recognized Rudy and Jake's songs, The Wellerman, and some Spanish music. I haven't been listening to it as much, but sea shanties, big thing. Been very addicted to them for the past 2-3 years now.
Interesting.
Very particular. I'm hoping for more sea shanty parodies.
That's awesome. Thanks for entertaining my questions. I know that was ridiculous, but I was just curious.
Oh, it's all good, man.
It's late night. We're having fun. It's impromptu. And to be fair, did you see my round table? We're not exactly perfectly organized. I prefer having us loose. Less structure, more. To be fair, people come to this channel because they like to see the personalities in who we actually are versus our on-screen full personalities.
Oh yeah, no,
we
I'm
all
intrigued
got
to watch. So no, I did have a question though that popped up. So and this is kind of continue your live stream earlier, Jake. It was like, what is better, like rarity or demand or something of the like. I was thinking maybe we could kind of piggyback off of that and touch on different pieces because I thought that could be really helpful for people to hear our opinions around that.
So could you kind of make it more concise? I got a little confused in there.
Yeah, Jake, if you would like to just briefly, not recap, but just touch on that.
Well, so prices are determined. Prices are determined by supply and demand, right? So when we think about supply, we're thinking about both rarity, which is sort of the amount of something that exists in the world, and then scarcity, which is the amount that is sort of available at any one time versus the amount of people sort of interested in that. A scarcer item being something where there could be a decent amount in the world, but there aren't a lot on the market or aren't enough on the market to accommodate all the people that want it, which makes an item scarce. But so when we think about should you invest in rarity or should you invest in demand, the answer is clearly both. And items that have the most of both are going to be the best. I think when we think about is it the rare items that I should go after more or the demand items I should go after more, that's a great discussion. I think that it completely depends on a lot of factors. One big one being the moment that we're in. So there have been times in my channel where I've really pushed people to that. I feel like the market's greatly underestimating the importance of rarity. I think this year is a great example because we had 90% maybe of the market, 8%, 70%, whatever it was, whatever we want to speculate on, being brand new and not knowing about most of the actual rare cards in the hobby and thinking that the rarest card in the hobby is a first edition Charizard, right? And that being a common thing I heard lots and lots of people saying. And, no hate on those people. That's normal, right? I have people coming to me all the time who are brand new asking me to value their cards and all these sorts of things. And they don't know anything, not because they're to no fault of their own. They're just haven't been in this, right? And so you can use that sort of thing to your advantage from a financial perspective, investing perspective, when you realize you have a lot of knowledge that a lot of other people don't, and that they might get that over time, which might change their relationship, and that demand actually might move to some of the rare items once they become aware of them. The main issue with demand is that it can be very frugal. Frugal, that's not the right word. It can be very, what was the word I was trying to reach in my brain for? Frivolous, I don't know. That doesn't really work. But it can be very difficult to predict and very, it can be there one day, completely gone the other day, the next day. And it can be highly moved and shaped by narratives that are created, which are sometimes very true and good, long-sustaining narratives, which is what you want to look for in demand. Or it can be sort of short-term narratives that people really buy right now and are really jump on and won't in the future. So one dangerous narrative could be MetaZoo, that a lot of people are really high on MetaZoo and think it's going to be like this really amazing thing. That could be a very like short-lived demand interest narrative that does not last. I'm not saying it will, but that's possible. Whereas there are, narratives that have been around in this hobby for a long time, narratives like people, and that actually have like real basis behind and a long history of basis behind narratives around that people like, base set cards and jungle cards and fossil cards and Team Rocket. And we grew up with those cards and we enjoy those cards and we like those cards. They remind us of our childhood, right? Now there are newer narratives around things ranging from like Top Soon, to being the first cards. Trophies actually they've been around for a while, those narratives, but they're narratives that have been created around some of those things. The Pikachu Illustrator narrative that it's like the most expensive, the Grail card, the Grail trophy, in the hobby, types of narratives that may or may not be true, may or may not have the demand the demand actually believes that forever. And so the danger of buying into those high demand narratives, like this set is going to be the best set of all time. Great example, Champions Path, right? The narrative before Champions Path came out when those Charizards were released was that this set was going to be amazing and everyone should buy a ton of it and it's going to be the biggest hit ever and those Elite Trainer boxes are going to be worth $1 million, right? And then we know what happened when the narrative quickly shifted to, SM Pratt makes a video about how it's like the worst set and really, I think, to be fair, it's like a little bit overly negative and like other people being a little bit overly negative. Similar thing, may have happened to Evolution, like where there's a bit of a it's junk and like this narrative gets started that people kind of buy that maybe then in the future changes, maybe it changes back and goes back and forth. But just great examples of how demand can kind of fluctuate from us looking at a set as like an amazing thing to a garbage thing. And so that's a long-winded way of saying that rarity is objective. And as long as we actually have accurate information, which in many cases we don't, but PSA 10s, we very likely have pretty accurate information. PSA 9s a little bit less accurate. There's actually probably less of those because PSA 9s get cracked and regraded and this sort of thing. Booster boxes we don't have information on. We don't know how many of these vintage booster boxes are left, how many of these like middle-aged booster boxes are left. So there's a lot of questions out there. But if you actually do get those rarity numbers or have that sense, that is objective, and it doesn't matter how people feel about it from one day to the next. So then what matters when you have a very rare item, you only need 60, 50, whatever, however many cards there are of that item for people to be willing to pay that $10,000, $15,000, $100, $200, $500 price, what have you. Whereas when you're dealing in those very high demand items, you run that risk of the demand shifting and then destroying you because there's so many people with that product and no one wants it. Okay. Now the positive of demand can be things like liquidity, which can be really good for businesses. And during high demand periods, sometimes those high demand items move the most because they were undervalued during a low demand period where the rare items are more valued because there weren't that many people interested in Pokemon. And so only the PSA 10s had value, right? The 9s had like no value. 8s had zero value. No one was even grading 8s. And so I was picking up lots of 9s and 8s, which had a higher supply, right? And a very low demand, thinking that the demand for these is going to pick up and then it's going to outpace some of these PSA 10s or these types of things, which is what happened by the numbers. But then that can flip back where the high demand period drives some of that stuff up and the rare stuff isn't as correctly valued. So that's what I would be looking at is like, where are we? Is now a good time to go after the rare stuff? Is now a good time to go after the high demand stuff? And you have to think as a business or as a seller also, what is your model like, right? Do you like, I do that, the podcast with the collection spec guys and like, their models tend to be a lot more like selling a lot of things and wanting, to turn their money over a lot. Me, I'm looking a little bit more ideally for things I'm going to hold for a long time. And so that also changes, I can be very patient with a card that is worth $30,000, $40,000, but there may only be 10 buyers for it. And I have to wait for one of them to want it or have the money versus the card we always talk about is like the Ancient Mew, which, there are tons of and just sells all the time, or base set Charizard, good examples. So what do you guys think about all those points? Interested to hear. Sorry, I know I'm long-winded. It's just the way my brain works. I'm externally processing.
Yeah, we all talk through our thoughts differently. Some of us are really good at being concise. Others, we have to say the point, then we have to elaborate that point to make sure it still makes sense, and then we have to still keep elaborating just to make sure it all makes sense. I get it.
Yes, that was the way my brain works.
Yeah, so you actually definitely helped give me a little more perspective on that approach. The way I rationalized it a while back was I categorized cards in the population versus the awareness driven categories. Population, I touched on it briefly earlier, where the more people in the hobby, the more that card appreciates. But I had never even considered the idea, not just due to pure ignorance, uh, of taste shifting. I just had never considered it. But knowing that, I'm definitely going to be revisiting that concept. But the popular or awareness driven category, which is rarity essentially in your case, kind of, I've always viewed it as it's something that people don't know about. And if it can ever get caught up into that population driven category, it'll grow exponentially for a period of time until it gets caught up in that. And I didn't realize it until just now. I've been lining up that awareness with the idea of your rarity, of the rarity concept of it needs enough rarity so that even though you put money into it and it's very unknown, there's so little of it that all it takes is, let's say, the awareness of it doubling from a couple thousand to a couple more thousand, maybe 10,000, and it'll dramatically shift the price. And sorry if this is a long-winded thing and a little difficult to follow because, like I said, I was learning as you were talking, so thanks for all that. And essentially the approach I've had is try to find the cards that are in the awareness category where they don't have enough of it but have the rarity that you've been talking about, that I'm willing to make the gamble on. No one knows about this card. Is it because no one cares about it or because just no one knows about it? Because there are genuinely cards out there that no one has any idea exist. Right? Let's be honest. To a lot of people, they don't even know about the vending series, and that's actually a pretty big Japanese thing. And if we can get, and the way I've always approached it is, if I can get them to line up, that's an opportunity. But again, sorry if this was a little difficult to understand.
Definitely. The only thing I would have to add would be it. Again, it gets really complex, which is why we all have to talk so long on this one subject. Because yes, not everyone is aware of it. It's if people in the sports TCG or not TCG, if people in the sports card community were aware of these incredibly rare Pokemon cards, we wouldn't see them again. They would have been scooped up by now. But does that make it a good investment today? That's a great question. It depends, right? What is the price point we're talking about? And again, back to the whole rarity demand bit. I like to think of like bottled water, right? The demand's going to be pretty high for that, right? Well, what about the rarity on that bottled water, right? I always like to make it stupid simple. Even when I was doing things before, I like to make it stupid simple and then exaggerate my point on one end or the other. So make it stupid simple and then like, I don't know, exaggerate my point. So to give you an example, so you have the bottled water aspect, right? So there's demand for it, but there's no rarity, right? Something to keep in mind with these cards, there's rarity, there's not as much demand. Is that because, like what both of these guys were talking about, is it because no one is aware of it, or do they not care? Is it both? Is it not the time for that? Is it not the time for that specific card this specific year? 4 years from now, that's the time. So as far as rarity and demand are concerned, both are incredibly important and they work synergistically. It gets really complex really quick. The more you look into it, there's not a right time to buy. There's not a right time to sell as far as you're going to just knock it out of the park every time. So again, that's why we're having to elaborate so much. And I feel like I even confused myself with the explanation I'm trying to give here. But yeah, rarity and demand, they're great. I'm sorry?
I was just saying Jake is too big brain for me right now.
Yeah, as far as rarity and demand are concerned, that's why it's a cool conversation, because yes, both are incredibly important. You need both of them for a great investment. At the end of the day, we're speculating on cardboard. And then when I have to look at that, I like to look at past performance. I would argue, I would argue past performance is indicative of future results, because I know humans are not smarter than they were 10 years ago in that investing space. I can say that with confidence. I've seen it for years. So that's what I have to add.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not something we want to think about, but the reality is there is a narrative right now that investing in cards is a good idea and it's fun and it's a great way to make a lot of money, and that Pokemon is the best, most popular, non-sports TCG. Right? In the past, Magic was the best one to invest in, and Pokemon wasn't really investable, right? So there are different narratives that are sort of told and accepted, and those have huge impacts on the market. And so you have to be aware that part of why Pokemon is very expensive, or I worry Pokemon's a little bit expensive still, or expensive right now, is we are still in a huge boom period where lots and lots of people feel like this is a great investment and this is a great place to put my money, and a potentially safe place to put my money, and a potentially place where I'm going to make $1 million, or I'm going to, make it huge. And, there's also a ton of love and a ton of interest and probably a ton of long-term people who would be engaged in this, even if prices went down a lot. There are also probably a lot of people who, first of all, have already left because prices have come down. And if prices went down even a lot more and it returned to the prices in 2019, how many more people wouldn't become interested? How many more people would become uninterested when they could no longer make a business here? And that also goes for like some of our big YouTubers, right? It's like, and then if you lost that, what would happen? So there's a lot of things that people don't want to hear and don't want to think about because it doesn't feel good, and it can feel scary because, like, well, I've got a lot of money in this and I don't, but like that's part of investing, is looking at, okay, so what is the market missing? And then for me, it's that constant psychology of like, okay, do I think people are correctly assessing the risks and the market's at a good place, or do I think people are overly bullish? 6 months ago, I was on my channel screaming, I've never been more confident than anything in my entire life. I've been through, the tech bubble and other sorts of things. And with my dad as a financial advisor, it's like, I've never seen mania. Like, I've never been a part as an adult of mania quite like this. And the conversations I was having with people and the type of content I was seeing and the positive irrationality. Now we're in a period where there's like a lot more pessimism and there's both like negativity and toxicity against content creators that it's ridiculous. And there's also, general negativity in the hobby and people leaving the hobby because of that and all sorts of things. And so I don't like any of that, but from a financial or investment perspective, that does actually make these things more attractive because the prices are holding at a decent value despite that right now. There are a lot of people who are still having a lot of fun and are really enjoying it despite all of that stuff. And that to me is a sign of sort of long-term sustained price success and price interest and people being interested in the hobby. And the fact, when we start seeing a number of YouTube channels, because they're not getting the same sorts of views, shut down and, not be as interested, it's like when that starts leaving, when we start seeing some of these breaking channels maybe stop because they can't sell their packs for $5, $6, $7, $8 anymore and they're making thousands of dollars. I mean, they're making so much money, but that isn't there anymore. What does that do? And if the market goes down more and particularly modern gets hit and PSA grading, continues to be shut down, and there are so many of these grading companies and grading gets diluted and the value of that gets diluted, unfortunately, I am someone who I think about these worst case scenarios and try to factor that into my risk assessment. I also try to think of like best case scenarios and positive things too. It just seems to be unfortunate that I have to seem to be a voice who says those things because it doesn't seem to exist that much in the Pokemon world, at least in the content creator space, which worries me. But yeah, that's what I would say, about all of those things. But there's also plenty of reasons to be bullish. The positive demographics that are in Pokemon's favor, the multiple generations, the people my age who have been here and were interested in this before it was blowing up, right? Staying in it, having more money, and what cards are we buying? What things are we looking at? And that's part of why I'm so confident in certain trophy cards and certain, PSA 10 pop and certain WotC stuff, and less confident because the rest of the market to me and this investing in modern idea has not proven itself to me as much as some of that other stuff. And I think is the stuff that would really get to, could really, get hurt the worst in that sort of downturn. Just given the people who I know are in the hobby and have their money and are focused on some of that other stuff that I'm mostly looking at, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. I will say my attention on the comments have been suffering because I've always found that I have to focus really hard on what you say because you provide. Basically, whenever you talk, it's like I'm in the middle of class for a solid 5 or 10 minutes, but the duration of the class was like the full hour long. So again, thanks for all that. Very nice actually being able to talk to you directly.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, man.
I did want to ask you.
This is all the stuff that goes through my head when I'm making any purchase, and I'm in a lot of other markets too, both card markets, but then also stocks and other sorts of things. And this is just how I think about everything.
Maybe we'll get to your level one day because, like I said, I'm still a fledgling. I started last year in February. I just binged myself on you, SM Pratt, Rudy, and various others. I did want to ask you one thing. This is just for my own entertainment, and same thing to you, Captain. Are there any trophy cards that you guys feel are overvalued? It's okay if it's not completely based in rationale. A little bit of your opinion can come in because at the end of the day, it's all our opinion depending on what we think the art is like. Should it be worth that much? Or, like I said, you could even argue based off of pure rationale. Are there any trophy cards you guys think are overvalued?
I had only one off the top of my head that came up immediately when you said that. I think it's because it was such an underrated play, and because everyone that I have heard talk about trophy cards has mentioned it, would be the victory medals. I would just say maybe consider pumping your brakes. I don't know, right? I don't know as far as I just looked up on eBay right now. I haven't seen the prices change too much. I haven't seen listing numbers change too much lately. Again, this is me looking and viewing 20 seconds worth of data. Take that how you will. Just off the cuff, that's what I would say. When it's a great idea to everyone, might be a decent time to say, whoa, hold on a second here. That's my pick.
I feel like sometimes we look at these trophy cards with under such a strong microscope, or just nitpicking them so much and being like they have all this going for it, that sometimes we forget maybe the fundamentals still apply to them. That even trophy cards can sometimes overshoot their value if they were underrated at some point. So I could definitely see that. You, Jake?
So I'm going to briefly take this moment to plug my Patreon because we're going to be I'm going to be doing a deep dive on trophies this month. So part of the Patreon that we do each month, we do a monthly live stream Zoom where we all kind of like hang out and talk. Usually there
I look forward to it. I hang out
right now, like 30, 40 people coming to each one. Hopefully we've gotten some more, patrons. We're up to about 166 now. So hopefully more and more will come in the future, and I'm also going to hopefully bring in other content creators. But the reason I bring it up in the context of this is we're actually going to be going through all the trophy cards. We're going to be going through, not all, but particularly the rare ones, and going through the prices and talking about giving a little bit of a lot of information on them, because I think part of there's not that much information that's public to most people out there. So shameless Rudy plug, as he would say, shameless Jake plug. But what I would say in terms of overrated, I wouldn't think I think of these things as like relatively overrated versus maybe some other trophies. It's so difficult to say, like, is this card, is it that these other cards are too low in price, or is it that this trophy is too high in price, if that makes sense? So for me, the cards that I've always felt, just being blunt, I usually avoid saying specifics. I don't like creating narratives, right? I mean, but like, to me, it's just logic. Like the University Magikarp, never understood the value of that card. I never understood how that card was on the same level as like the original 1998 Tropical Wind, you know, anywhere near a card like the Trophy Kangaskhan, any of these other, you know, I mean, even lesser, you know, trophies when we go into like the Diamond and Pearl era, you know, like Master Key era, you know, and for me, you know, there are 1,000 of those that were the intended distribution, which is a lot for a card that's going for like 10,000 plus. You know, I think I saw one sell for like 25, 30,000 in like 9 or 10 or something like that. You know, very huge amount of money. There are probably 1,000 distributed. It's an art that you can get for extremely cheap. It's because it's an art that they reprinted. So you can for like $5 get that art on a different card. Unlike these other trophy cards in that same tier. It is a really cool event and a cool release, and I certainly think that it should be a valuable card. I'm not saying it shouldn't be valuable. It's odd to me how high it is compared to other things, and that it's in that realm. And to me, that's price inertia and price memory more than rationality. You know, and now I'm also going to throw the Pikachu Illustrator. You know, the Pikachu Illustrator is a card that became the most valuable card in this hobby, in large part because there were thought to be only 4 or 6, and then over time, there are now 39 accounted for, and there could be more. I mean, we don't know, right? That more could come up. There could be extra copies of these things, whereas we only have, you know, 20 of each snap card. We only have, you know, in terms of like the original Pikachu trophies, like the 1997, like that are from the first ever tournament, like those cards to me, you know, where they're only like 4 of the first place, for example, you know, now there's that art for multiple years, but only for that year, right? For that says 1997. So, and to me, that's a more historical event than the Pikachu Illustrator events, right? So there's a lot of there, and this goes to that conversation about narratives and how demand can change, and how narratives can change when people make different arguments or good arguments, and why did certain things get certain prices, and you know, and a lot of it's comps and price inertia, and because things sell for a certain amount at some point for whatever reason, and then they usually sell at that for a while, or it's hard for it to come down. So I think that's the type of stuff I'd be looking at in trophies. So really, you want to do your research. You want to understand the trophy you're buying, the historical significance, the amount that was released, why it's valued at that compared to some other things. Like that would be all the stuff I'd be looking for. So hopefully that's helpful for people. Now, again, the Pikachu Illustrator should be one of the most expensive, and it's also has this notorious story now of being the Grail card, or of experiencing all these high sales, which will always help it. And it's always going to be one of the key cards in the hobby and very expensive. But, you know, $1 million card plus maybe, you know, for like the PSA 10, maybe they just got graded, or, you know, and then 600,000 or whatever for like the 9s roughly, versus, you know, some of these other Pikachu trophy cards selling for like 70, 80, 120, 150, 200, when I think those are better. Like they're, you know, and it's for the vast majority, right? It's irrelevant because these prices are insanely huge and they may not be cards that people are interested in, but it's a good lesson. That's the key, is to understand that lesson and apply it to whatever you're looking at in the market, and to apply the psychological lessons of how those price points are created, how markets are created, and who are these market makers who are making those markets and building those markets and building those narratives and sharing those narratives successfully. So all that's super important in these like unregulated spaces.
Man, it is quite fun actually being able to probe your brain finally, versus just getting the snapshots of your videos. Any more questions we got, Captain? Or we want to start grabbing from the audience?
I was going to say, I was about to start grabbing from the audience.
All right, guys. So throw a few questions up. We'll each take turn grabbing one. I'll grab one, then Captain, then Jake. But before then, tell me, what are y'all's thoughts on celebrations? Just something nice and simple. Like, love it, hate it, worried.
Like
something
it.
Nice and simple. What?
Like it. Don't know about love. I'm not in love with it. I think it's a super cool idea. Yeah, like it.
I think it's interesting that a lot of people actually think celebrations might kill the hype itself, because what we're seeing so far, it kind of looks like it kind of reminds me of Champion's Path in the regards of it feels like it's lacking content right now, and I'm kind of concerned about how small that vault is. If the vault's too small, oh my god. I I fear what will happen with the hype. This, I want it to be a fun set to open at the end of the day. It needs to be fun.
I think you nailed it with this, with the small, the potential of it being repetitive and boring or too easy to get the cards.
Shining Legends, you pointed it out, I think last year.
So I think that's the danger, because there's so much hype, right? When there's so much hype, there's already this expectation and price point built in, right? And then when if it doesn't live up to that, that can be dangerous. So, I do think that probably a lot of people probably have decently tempered expectations because of that. So hopefully it'll just be like a fun release, a fun time. We can open it. I'm not expecting it to change Pokemon forever, like personally. But it'd be cool to get some of those cards. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. And maybe it'll be a huge hit. I do wish it hadn't gotten spoiled. Because I think it would have just been fun to all experience it together and that excitement when we actually could have the cards. And now it's kind of like we know what's in there so far before we actually open it ourselves. I also think that might kill some of the excitement or the hype as well. So, but we'll see. It's not too far away now, right? So yeah.
I hope they don't rob me of another Magikarp Gyarados card like they did in Evolving Skies. Also, you pointed out University Magikarp having a reprint. I just so happen to have that card. I love Magikarp. That's the main thing I want. The reason I flip is to one day afford the University Magikarp. That is literally the reason I do it.
Awesome.
Funny enough. So that's it. For you, I mean, it'd be interesting to hear, right, my take on it. And if you're sort of like, to me, it just doesn't matter, because you either disagree with my take or it's the card you want the most because it has, it's the hardest to get, or not the hardest, but one of the hardest to get, Magikarp cards, or most expensive at least.
I honestly do agree with your take for the most part. The University Magikarp, I've never found a time where I can't just type in the card and find it. No matter what time I've chosen, I can just type it in and there's usually a result somewhere. It even pops up on Facebook. At one point, it popped up on Facebook Marketplace. And it was a legitimate thing. So I do agree with what you're saying, and I'm going to be honest. I would love for what you're saying to be absolutely true, because then it means it becomes cheaper. All right, I'm going to...
You just want the card as a collector.
Yeah, absolutely. I want it as a collector. I may be very evil and love money, but there are some cards in this hobby I do want as a collector. Perfect example. If you guys ever see any of my videos, at the top of everything is the Poncho, Pikachu, Magikarp, and Gyarados. That is like one of those things I was searching after. Old School hooked me up. So happy I got that. Those are like the only things I will ever want to keep, the Magikarp Gyarados cards. Everything else, it's up for sale sooner or later.
And that's part of the reason why that card does hold good value and why people want it, is because there are a number of people who really love Magikarp. I've talked to these people, and because there aren't a lot of other great options, right? Like you have on the Japanese side, you have like the fan club, one which is very expensive and hard to get, but not nearly as hard to get. So there aren't that many like attainable sort of Magikarp chase cards, so even if there are less Magikarp collectors than there are Pikachu collectors, there are maybe a lot more Pikachus and all these promos to choose from. So, that can be a good argument for why, it's also, I think, why like the Umbreon play promo is selling for so much and went up so much this year. And like, I think one sold right for $75,000, definitely a very rare card, trophy card. But it's sort of the chase Umbreon, and Umbreon is such a popular Pokemon that people want these types of things.
Thankfully for all those people who are chasing Umbreon, they can, Celebration's going to have one, so they can actually kind of get it.
Yeah.
There's actually two questions. I might just bundle them together because both have kind of a short answer. Do you buy international language sealed product like Portuguese, Spanish, French, or German just to own and enjoy, not necessarily as a long-term investment? No, at least not me. Just English and Japanese. That's it. Japanese kanji looks cool. All right, I'm a little bit of a weeb.
From an investment standpoint, yeah, I stick to English and Japanese because I understand that. I have historical data I can look at, and I can comprehend that. I understand there's a market for Spanish and French cards, but I don't understand it. Number one, if I can't understand it, I'm not going to invest in it. Yes, I think there's room for growth there. How much? No idea. Another thing to keep in mind too, even if I really like that set, the French set, let's say the French base set, do I think that will outperform something else? Personally, no. So that is why I don't find those as attractive of investments. That's not something I look into as much. Again, number one, I don't understand it. Number two, how much do other people like it and understand it? Will I be forced to understand it? Do I think it will grow more? No. That's not a bash on the languages. I'm just saying it is where it is, right? In this case, English, Japanese happen to be king. So that's how I look at it.
And I do want to chime in one more thing before sorry to interrupt you, Jake. Going into a language besides Japanese, I feel like that's a third-rate investment, and it's just we're already in such a highly speculative market. It's already ridiculous, right? I made the grenade analogy. If we're going into other languages, I feel like the grenade's blowing up in some cases. It's the same idea as the Elite Trainer box. If you can't get the booster box, then you go for the Elite Trainer box. You can't afford that, you go for the blister. Why are you doing the blister? The other two are clearly better. You just take patience. That's how I feel about foreign languages. It's just English, fine. Japanese, you can't afford Japanese? I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be mean. What are you doing? So yeah, sorry, Jake, go ahead.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about the price point. And that's going to be the answer to like all of these questions pretty much, and so it's and I can't share with you like, the specific price point I'd look for on like what specific booster box. Like I'd be making that calculation. So, and you can make that calculation as an investor, or, and then I think it becomes a little bit more of like, maybe are any of them worth buying because, as Zack says, or just the lack of like data, it's just hard to predict what's going to happen there. A little bit of concern with all that stuff. I think as a collector, although I think that there can be definitely good arguments, and we see other languages doing well in other hobbies. Okay, so there's in value in some in other cards and other languages and other hobbies. So there's some precedents from this we can look outside of Pokemon, and obviously in Pokemon too. Base set first edition, Chinese, it being a very rare, printing is very expensive, and there are people who really go after those cards. German, there's a lot of German collectors. People really like that. Pokemon's very popular in Germany, evidently. There are, I'm hearing Pokemon's like getting popular all over the place. I hear people telling me all the time about, the next thing is to buy like Portuguese cards because in Brazil and it's going to be very expensive or very popular. I think it's all about price point. I think as a collector, it's about that price point of how much enjoyment will you get out of that versus the English or the Japanese for a much higher price, for example. So for me, a good example is like I opened a ton of Korean Yu-Gi-Oh! Because Korean Yu-Gi-Oh! Cost me $20 a vintage booster box, whereas buying it in Unlimited would have cost me like $1,000 plus, and buying it in first edition would have cost me $10,000 plus for certain boxes, or $5,000. So you can see the difference there is insane, right? It's like $20, $30, $40 versus that. Now, if the Korean had been like $500 versus the English being like $1,000 or something, I probably would have gone with the English for probably, right? Because the Korean may not. So it's that sort of price point. And then which language do you prefer? Because like, I'll just be honest with you, there's some languages I just like think look a little bit nicer on cards than others, that distract less, that bother me less for whatever reason. So there's just a sort of, but that may just be me and not other people, right? But from a collector's perspective, it's like, how much are you going to enjoy and feel satisfaction having a completed French or Spanish or Portuguese or German set versus that in English or Japanese, or in this case, you're talking about sealed product. Having that, enjoying that sealed product and just having like the box art. So, for example, like for me, like I think that there are certain box arts that I really like that it would be great having those in other languages because I'd have that really cool box art for like a much lower price. I think there are a number of booster boxes that I don't think have that great art and are kind of ugly, and I think that it maybe wouldn't appeal to me, or that I'd have a little bit of a different calculation. So that'd be sort of my full answer. I don't think that it's just, there's always a lot to consider, and that's why these things are not black and white, and why, those like top 5 things to buy right now, type things. It's like, well, maybe, but like, this and that, and there are all these things to consider, and, so yeah.
All right. So the other one, this is just, let's see, best guess estimation on how many base set unlimited boxes have been broken since the beginning of 2022 date, and what that would mean for the investability on it. That is,
I'd like to know too.
I would love to know about it. Don't worry, I got a crystal ball coming in the mail. I need it as a prop. I genuinely have no idea on that at all. I know there's a good chance that surprisingly large portion of them have been ripped. I know there was a period of time where it felt like there was a base set unlimited box being ripped almost every week. No clue how many there are left. Investability, I think Jake, I'd have to let Jake take over on that one again. I don't feel confident in my ability in vintage.
I have no idea how many are left or how many have been opened. A lot, but a lot are left. A lot, and when I say a lot, I mean, tens of thousands probably in the world. So
I did hear. Sorry, I kept stepping over you guys. I
That's
did
all right.
hear on. I don't know which Discord. I'm in too many now, but someone supposedly was working on a bot to track how many packs and booster boxes channels like PokeRev have been opening. It checks it automatically, goes through like whenever he does a new listing. That would be interesting data to know if it's accurate and up and running. I don't know what the follow-up was. That was a couple months ago now, so no idea. That would be very interesting, and to see how that could impact things. But yeah, I have no idea how many boxes were. I would love to know. I think that would cause quite the reaction on channels and on eBay and everywhere else. That would be kind of cool, but yeah, no idea. Sorry.
And I would love if we had numbers the way Legend Story Studios releases their numbers. But Captain, pick your question. I'll put it up on screen for you.
Okay. Have there been questions here recently? Because for a little bit, I saw there was like a... Trying to catch up here. Scroll past. NavZ asked one at 35 minutes past the hour.
Okay. I think I found it. You can start saying it and I'll find it.
Okay. You guys think Champion's Path actually has a move like Dragon's Majesty, given that people are giving up on the set and then surprises us in the future? So all things are possible, right? Hold on. Let me... Champion's Path actually has a move. So totally possible. Gosh, the way everything was printed recently scares me, right? So from an investment standpoint, going back to fundamentals, is it rare? No. Is it old? No. Now, 10 years from now, let's fast forward to the future. 5-10 years from now, the set will be older, right? Will it be rare? Still no. Will it be rarer? Yes. People will continue opening up the product. And then will people all of a sudden, will it be the new fad, Champion's Path for whatever reason? people just find out. I have no idea. For whatever reason, people tend to open up Champion's Path however many years from now. That's totally a possibility. But yeah, I mean, it'll go, in my opinion, it'll go up, right? 5-10 years from now, however many years from now, it'll go up eventually. Will it be a better investment than the sets next to it? Name your spice, as I like to say. I am not particularly excited about Champion's Path. I wish I had a sexy outlook on it for you, like a really unique angle. Unfortunately, it's not super popular. It wasn't super duper well received, and it's not rare, and it's not old. So I'm gonna have to give it a pass, in my opinion. Yes, it'll go up long term, again, in my opinion, but every single set has. So what are we talking about at that point? So that's my take.
Yeah, I mean, Dragon Majesty was likely not a very heavily printed set. It was not a set that people talked about too much, that people went after too much. I think there was some disappointment, that there wasn't a probably a Chase Charizard in a set called Dragon Majesty. I know I was expecting at the time I was expecting that the gold card, which is the Chase card of the set, and difficult to pull, and doesn't sell for that much in a PSA 10 compared to other things. The prices in PSA 10 and Modern are ridiculous and make absolutely no sense. I could have a whole conversation where I just go through all the ridiculous price points for so many things, and how there are these other cards that are like much rarer and will probably be more desirable, from sets that were produced much less, that are worth so much less because no one talks about it, right? Modern is full of narratives, so many narratives. But yeah, I was expecting the gold card, which was like an Ultra Necrozma gold card, to be the Charizard gold card, and I thought it, might be huge. But it came in some interesting products, right? Similarly, right? No booster box. It had that like ultra premium collection thing, which came with my memory serves me, it came with like a Kingdra and a Dragonite promo. I think the Dragonite promo was definitely the favorite between those two for people. The rest of the set, bit lackluster. Not a lot of chase cards and all other things people are interested. Champion's Path is very different. Champion's Path has those 2 Charizards, and has that Charizard promo that comes within the pack. So, but Champion's Path, there's probably a lot more of it printed, because there was just a lot of hype around it, and I think probably, this is all rampant speculation. It could be proven completely wrong, but that probably a Pokemon company thought it was going to be huge and made a lot of it. These are all things I was talking about at the time before I came out on my channel, when I was saying like, let's be careful on this set. But yeah. So there are pros and cons to each of these sets, and in terms of Dragon, like, first of all, is Dragon Majesty going for a lot right now? Because that I should look that up. I don't really know what's happening there. I've said that gold card is probably undervalued at times, and people have asked me like certain Modern cards, right? But again, I wouldn't invest in that card. I just think that it's surprising how difficult that card is to pull from a set that really had only one chase card from a specialty set that's like very hard to find, and you don't see packs of it, and it's very hard to pull that card. Is going for like $200 in PSA 10 versus other cards, and I think part of it is because the newer people in the hobby don't associate a lot of value to gold cards, because they made a lot of gold cards and they had a lot of cheap gold cards. But actually at that time, the gold cards were sort of the chase card of the hobby, and were sort of the rare, harder to find, cooler chase version compared to like the rainbow rare at the time. So, again, narratives changing, narrative shifting all the time. Part of the danger of investing in any of this stuff and investing in Modern. I guess the question is asking, is Champion's Path going to surprise us and go up in the future? It's all going to have to do. I think that the set is probably hated on a little bit too much, I think, but the danger is the amount that's printed. That's the danger. And it's not particularly going to be that fun for people to open unless those Charizards become very valuable. If those Charizards become extremely valuable, people will be opening that like crazy. It's just going to be hard for those Charizards to get extremely valuable because there's a lot of them and it might take a long time. But trust me, pack streamers will love to open that product if there's a chance at hitting those 2 Charizards and those Charizards are selling for thousands of dollars. Okay, that booster box, that ETB will not be $800. Do I think those cards will get to $2,000? I have zero idea. You know, they would not be the first thing I would bet on to get to that price. But, you know, that's my overall feeling, you know, with all the crystal ball stuff that we can't predict. Ooh, you're muted for me.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, yeah, thanks. I was going to say, I was hoping to retire with those Charizard. I graded one with Beckett, but granted, I traded it away immediately. The very first thing I'll say, the idea of it becoming like Dragon Majesty, it came out of nowhere, just blindsided everyone. Champion's Path is almost $100 again right now. I don't think we can even compare it to Dragon Majesty, considering it's already recovered to a comparable amount to where it was back in November. And Mason put it in really good words. Even though we all hate Champion's Path because people banked on it too much, it's 3 Charizards, and one of them is guaranteed. People are not going to really write it off that much. Sooner or later, I think people had negative sentiments towards it because it was overhyped at the time, and it's just Charizard or bust. Perfect example of how people felt about that in the past. Burning Shadows, Charizard or bust, that's it. So I don't see people undervaluing it that much, and the fact that it's $100 again right now just supports that point. So I don't think it'll pull a Dragon Majesty on us. I have no clue how it'll behave, but I'm fairly confident it won't be Dragon Majesty. All right, Jake, so you want to pick out a question?
Okay.
You can be anything, even Yu-Gi-Oh! I know a little bit about it because I see a few Yu-Gi-Oh! Questions in there.
Questions directed at me. So someone's asking a question about my take on, let's see, I just lost it. No, I lost it. Let me find it again. Shirish Sarker is asking, like, hey, Jake, what's your perspectives on Modern over the long term? If WotC still holds value in 10 to 20 years, Modern ought to as well, right? So we talked about this a little bit earlier in the stream. So I won't go back into like a long answer on it, but just that not necessarily, because, and as we see in other hobbies, sometimes just certain parts, certain cards and certain parts of the hobby go up forever. Others kind of plateau. Others just kind of go down and become less interesting. So not necessarily. We talked about it in depth earlier on, but it's possible. Excuse me. It's possible that it's possible that Modern won't hold value, but there are a lot of good arguments to be made that it will, and that these sets will have some identity and will be able to hold into the future. And we talked about that in detail before. But the second part of the question is, which Modern sets are you most bullish on? I mean, we could answer that and talk a little bit about the Modern sets we are bullish on, or if I were forced to choose which one I would be putting my money into, type of thing for me.
All right, so you said there was another question on what Modern sets we're bullish on?
Yeah, it's a few down from that. It's the same person. That's why I asked.
Okay, let me see.
Sheriff Sarger says as a follow-up, which Modern sets are you bullish on?
All right, so I guess I can answer both of them as well. Let me make myself full screen real quick. This is long term. Let's see. Yeah, absolutely. Just what Jake said. We have no clue how Modern's going to behave. Main thing. Cherry pick extremely hard if you're going to be moving in Modern, especially right now. Which sets are we bullish on? Eevee Heroes and Hidden Fates. Like it's the most milquetoast answer, but that's like it. Again, Eevee Heroes. Earlier I said, how are you going to lose if you Eeveelutions? There's a lot of people who like them. I don't know if that taste will change. I'm willing to bet that there will always be some portion of the hobby that just really likes EVs. I don't know if it'll shrink or it'll grow, but I think there's always going to be evolution collectors. And if you're an evolution collector, what's the next best option? Hidden Fates with 5 evolutions? You have 31 other cards you can pull that you don't like because you only like the EVs? Well, EV Heroes, you bust open the box, good luck being disappointed. You're going to be happy. And Hidden Fates, just because people were paying they were paying like $250 for an Elite Trainer box of that set, and it wasn't even a year old yet. I could very easily, and the thing is, people were still opening it. That's the big thing. At those prices, I was seeing people opening them. I was seeing people paying $20 for Hidden Fates booster packs to open. Yeah, they shouldn't have been paying that price, but the point is they were opening it. Even if Hidden Fates were to become, let's say, $200 in the next 2 years, I think people are still going to be opening it. And it's just a fun set. Like I said before, I argue Hidden Fates jump-started all of this. It started in 2019, and it really picked up steam with the pandemic. So I'm really bullish on that one. And someone in the comments earlier was asking Jake to try and bring us down to earth because we all think the same thing. Something's wrong with us. We need to be brought back down to earth. All right, you, Captain?
Works for me. Let's see. So yeah, I'll briefly touch on the previous question. Actually, no, I won't. We touched on that earlier. Jake just covered it as well. So, as a follow-up, which modern sets are you most bullish on? Shiny Star V, EV Heroes, and 25th Japanese 25th anniversary set, and Blue Sky Stream, I would say, as far as modern goes. Shiny Star V, that organic demand at the beginning of the year was just insane. However, something to take a caveat there would be everything had insane organic demand around that time, which makes it really difficult to gauge true organic demand. We did see it, and we still see it. I forget what the article was showing that Shiny Star V was the number one. It was the number one volume in sales on Japanese eBay or Yahoo, one of their sites. So either or, doesn't matter to me. That's a big sign. Same thing with EV Heroes the following quarter. Do I think we'll see something similar with the 25th anniversary set? Personally, yes. Do I think people might be a little disappointed once they start actually opening it and find out, oh my goodness, I just completed half my set with opening up 2 things? Probably. We'll see here in a couple of months. We'll know for sure. I'm quite bullish on those sets. Generations is a pretty cool example because we saw something like this 5 years ago when there was a crash, we'll say, when there was a reset, and Generations boxes are insane even now. That is not to say that the 25th anniversary will perform the same. Do I expect something similar in 5, 10, however many years down the road? Personally, yes. Again, past performance is not indicative of future results. I will argue until I'm blue in the face that it is indicative. So that's my take. Those are the sets I'm bullish on.
Yeah, I talking specifically on your past performance and all that. I also like to chant that mantra, but I have to admit, it really does feel like it does determine future performance. Even though, in the back of your mind, you shouldn't allow yourself to do that. It's like, not every Pokemon set goes up, but I can't tell you a single Pokemon thing that hasn't gone up in the actual TCG, and it's frustrating to explain that.
Well, yes, and the thing that I always like to say when I had people calling in through the years, yes, past performance is not indicative of future results. You're absolutely right. However, would this multi-billion-dollar firm put it on a paper to sell you this fund if it wasn't relevant at all? Think about that.
Yeah, so I can see you, Jake. I know it's probably bothering you a bit hearing that, or
No, it's just scratching my eye.
okay, but yeah, that's just how I've always felt. It's such a hard thing to get past the idea of, yeah, you shouldn't allow that, but it just makes sense, okay? But I do want to ask you guys one selfish question, since we're about to wrap this up, guys. At the end of the hour, we're probably going to wrap it up, unless if we're talking just a bit further. Have you guys seen or heard of my spider system at all? That's unfortunate. No, well, maybe in the future I can talk with you, Jake. You, Captain?
I have, yes.
What are your thoughts on it overall? Like critiques, anything you would modify?
I like it, my man. I'm a big fan of diversification and allocation and all these justification and all these ification words I want to throw out to make me sound smart. I like it. It's super cool. People love being told what to do. That's why they hire advisors. That's why they talk to therapists. That's why we talk. I am not an expert at fixing my car. I couldn't tell you. I can lift up the hood and say, yep, something's wrong. And I'll take it to an expert because I want to be told what to do. Even if the expert will say, hey, man, I'm only like 80% sure, like awesome. Your worst guess is better than my best guess. People love being told what to do. That's why channels like these exist, which is also the scary thing because a lot of responsibility comes with that too, right? So we have to be very careful.
Oh, yeah.
But I love it. I love it, man, because it's just another way to get in another source of information, knowing, hey, Sam kind of thinks this, like he's a little bit more bullish on this part or this part. And that's the breakdown of this product in his opinion. I love that. And I tell people regularly, it's the reason it's great to hear conversations like these and other YouTubers, even people you don't agree with in particular. It's just like going to church or going to school or you keep sharpening yourself. You need to hear that over and over again because it's so easy to stray off the path. So I like it, man.
All right, thanks. And again, it's just going to be a little selfish to tell you a little bit about it, Jake. Essentially, I wanted to try and methodically break down modern, so I created the spider system. There's constants, which would be Pokemon diversity, shinies, considering adding alternate arts, but they're too new, so I don't have proper info on them yet. And what else have I added? I believe waifus are in it now too. And then spider stands for supply, which less supply, that's better. Playability, less playability, better in my eyes, just because we don't get a roaring sky situation where the entire value was in the playability, and as soon as it rotates out, it tanked everything. Combined with playability increases the chances of reprint. I is intrinsic value, which I look for some strong connection initially between the box price and the intrinsic value, and as Zack has explained in the past, they absolutely deviate as time goes on. D, deviation, how often do we miss the intrinsic value? E, the expectations, where is everyone thinking we're going to get a Hidden Fates 2.0 or a Steam Siege 2.0? In reality, what actually happened? And then I check it over 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, and then 12 to out of rotation, and I'm thinking of adding one more of out of rotation plus. And essentially, it's just organizing the data and then trying to interpret it. Like, is there anything you would you haven't seen it at this point, but anything you would add in, something I should specifically look for to try and investigate?
Not off the top of my head. No, I'm sure I think it's great. I think it's great to analyze things and try to break them down into the key, the key things that you should be tracking and looking at and watching when you try to predict, price change and movement. I think that as time goes on, it'll probably be easier, to predict what modern sets are going to do. I think the issue right now is that the reason everything is at an all-time high is because there's way more people interested in these cards and there's way more people with money than ever before. And so we're going to have to see how much of this money stays and then where the money goes to most over time, if it does. And that'll tell us a lot more about in my opinion, about, this is the first time people have really been investing in mass in modern Pokemon and spending anything over $50 to $100 on a modern Pokemon card, really. So, the first one really was the Burning Shadows Charizard. It's not that long ago, and so I think that time will tell. Time will tell how all of it goes. But I think trying to analyze it and make sense of it and find patterns and predict it is great. And what you should be doing if you're interested in the stuff, and it's also fun. I think that's a big part of all of this is the entertainment. And one thing I do like to say is that, you're getting, like, even if you don't look at the stuff, if you look at like trying to invest in Pokemon as entertainment and you lose like 20% of your money, that's a lot. That you're retaining 80% versus if you had put it into some other entertainment where you lose 100%. So, I think that you also like can be like super serious about it too, and just like have fun and take some risks, and also view it as like you're doing a little bit of like gambling, and that's fun, and you could make money or retain some value, and then there's that, and then there's like, I'm going to quit my job and try to do this full time, as a living, or I'm going to be putting all my money into this for investment purposes instead of putting it in stocks. Right. So there's, and I think the more you're towards that, like, very serious side, either like I'm investing all of my investable money into this, or I'm quitting my job and starting a business, that's where you have to get like really serious about tracking all this data. And, you can be a good talker or whatever, and you can get some things right, but can you replicate it over time, with a system that works for you across a number of different things and across a number of different types of markets, not all bull, right? Also these sort of down periods, and how you manage your business or your investments during those periods. So
All right, man. So I'm just going to grab this question because I think I know what the answer is for all of us, and I think they just want to hear it. Do you truly feel a PokeTuber has responsibility not to pump up a product when a licensed financial advisor doesn't get locked up when they lose money over speculation, and you hold YouTube responsible? I just want to grab this because this is a moralistic question. I think we're all in agreement on it, just because I think maybe they want to hear it. I think we do have a responsibility not to pump and dump and not to mislead people and abuse the trust that they put into us. At least that's how I feel. I think we're all on YouTube for the same reason, which is trying to help people navigate Pokemon in our own respective areas. You, Jake, I don't even know where you navigate. I think it's like the entire hobby, but you like trophies.
I like everything, in this hobby and a lot of other hobbies. I like collecting. I think I think that people are assholes if they don't give a shit about the people that are watching them, and they like, if you feel totally comfortable just giving advice that just to get views, or giving advice that people might actually follow, and that you don't care if they're gonna like lose money or not, that's not very nice. I would say. And I think it's very important that, like, we're not financial advisors. A lot of this is like entertainment and should help you like think, and and not, you shouldn't invest in anything that doesn't make sense to you and that you don't understand why you're investing in or putting money in it. Like, it should feel like it's coming from you, and it's the risk that you are deciding to take, and you need to take, whoever's out there, ownership of that decision. And part of that is like doing research and listening critically, and not just following any one person's advice because they have a big following, or because sounds like they said something smart, or because they've made a lot of money in the past, what have you.
I agree. If someone is coming to you for your opinion, or what your platform is, and that what you say will have a direct impact on what real human beings do with their hard-earned money, and you have zero care about what happens after that, yeah, I think that's a little scuzzy. I don't think you should do that as a moral. Just looking at that morally, yes. From a financial gain perspective, like pumping and dumping, my goodness, that is a whole different topic too, in and of itself. But yeah, morally, you should definitely care what you're telling people to do with their money. I'm sure you guys get the similar questions that I do. Hey, I have X amount of money to put into this. Like, that's very irresponsible of me to just say, oh, I'll just put it in this product here, just because that's the first thing I thought of. So yeah, don't do that. So yeah, you do have a responsibility to a certain point, right? At the end of the day, of the videos that we make or the live streams that we make, if you somehow misinterpret it or take it out of context, again, like what Jake said, we're not financial advisors and telling you, hey, you're definitely going to make money on this, 100% guaranteed. Here's the stamp of approval. I don't think most people think that though. But yes, you do have it somewhat, or you're not off the hook. That's what I'm trying to say. I have nothing else to add.
All right, guys. So that will be the end of our live stream. I'm going to let both of these great content creators shill for themselves right here at the end. So go ahead, and I'm going to let Captain Zack Sparrow have the lead.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, this was Spur of the Moment here. Thank you so much, the Bulba Squad, Bulba Gang. Appreciate you guys. I am in the Discord, so feel free to ping me. If you just have something weird to share or just want to talk, I'd love to. But yeah, channel is Captain Zack Sparrow. You can follow me on YouTube. I'm on Twitter, and now I'm on Instagram. I'm trying to change my name over, but you can find that in the description of my videos too. I don't even remember the name of the Instagram, but I'm on Twitter and YouTube. So thanks for tuning in, guys.
All right, and Jake is having technical difficulties right at the end, so I'll show for him. Go check him out at Pokenomics. He also has a Patreon. He does his monthly what are they, Zoom calls. They're actually really good and in depth, so I would actually recommend it. I think I have no clue what his price is anymore, but overall, I'd say definitely worth the price that I was indoctrinated in at. And as for myself, I got a Patreon. It's $1 for whatever content I throw up there, and anything beyond that is greatly appreciated. But $1 more than enough, and if not that, your view is great. So thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.